I would also assume that Shenzhen and Shanghai are competitors, although the more that I look into this, the more I feel that this is part of a bigger plan. So Peter, can I ask you what the history of the stock exchange here and where we're going?
Well, thank you, Gordon. The first thing I might say is that after 40 years of living in Hong Kong, I've learned lots of lessons, but two lessons really stand out. And the first is one should never, ever underestimate the ability of China to deliver on its big policy objectives and big policy initiatives that it has launched over 40 years that I've been watching.
I think historically, Hong Kong has done very well and have evolved from manufacturing into the service and financial sector role, as Peter has mentioned. But in terms of financial hub, I need to draw your attention to a report that was published not too long ago by the Global Financial Center, the Global Financial Center Index, published by the Yen from UK and China Development Institute from Shenzhen. And Hong Kong's role as a financial center actually is now the 5th position, whereas the top two are New York and London, clearly, and Shanghai has overtaken Tokyo to be number 3 position, and Tokyo is number 4, and Hong Kong is just right behind Shanghai and Tokyo, ahead of Singapore.
Simon, sticking just on the question of the stock exchange for the moment, what is your view of the role of the Hong Kong Stock Exchange as a financial hub, as part of this growing force? Are you similarly optimistic or less so?
I think I'm personally more pessimistic as a native Hong Konger, because I think the blueprints of the central governments of China is to follow the Singaporean model, which means to employ a lot of constraints on liberty, freedom, etc., and to retain the financial functions of Hong Kong. Originally, that would work, but the American responses and the global responses might be harsher than what we have been expected.
So does that mean you foresee a possible or probable crisis of confidence in outside people that Hong Kong is remaining independent? I think that sums up what you say, is it?
Two things. One is the original functions of Hong Kong, whether that can still be played. A lot of things are relying on the international recognition of Hong Kong as a separate entity, which is part of China, but different from the rest of mainland China. Right now, it seems that these roles are diminishing. And secondly, it's the confidence level that you have mentioned. It's not only the confidence level of the people living here, but also those who are living outside. Say, if you're the asset management officers or someone who are managing the family funds for some working families. So you have a lot of choices indeed, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Singapore. So they are now choosing hedging. So in the short run, I would expect some hedging exercise among all these financial people. But in the long run, it really depends on the global politics, geopolitics, and how the elections play out. So these are the long-term trend. But at least in the short run, I do think people will start to hedge.
It's true. I think that we've seen that it can be the slightest thing, whether it's Black Lives Matter. It can be I don't say the slightest thing. It can be the catalyst. Sometimes can be come from a corner that you just don't expect. So there you are, Connie. I'll be arrested with you now, Simon. I don't know where to quite start once I've got off my soapbox. The demonstrations, in your view, were a result of what? Purely politics, or these basic questions that Peter's talked about?
Yeah, I think for the very complicated issues like that, it's very difficult to have a simplified answer. But I think that despite the many disagreements that we may have, I think we all share the same consensus on the views and the comments that you've given on our governments and the chief executive. Regardless of people who are being labeled as blue or yellow, the only consensus is that the government is not doing a good job, right? Personally, I think it's a philosophical matter. One country, two systems. So what's the kind of autonomy that people are expecting? People are having a lot of different expectations. I think Peter has rightly mentioned that the Chinese government has been improving in different dimensions over the past decades, especially in terms of the economy. But at the same time, I think from the point of view of the people in Hong Kong, we might have also sensed a slightly different version of the improvements, as the government is increasingly confident in handling everything, the central government.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of great points there. I'm actually sitting in Shanghai, so I am kind of expecting a knock on the door any minute now. I think that, like, yeah, I mean, you know, China's been talking about Shanghai replacing Hong Kong, and, you know, with capital controls, that just won't happen, you know. And I think, Connie, a few people have made the point, you know, Hong Kong's rule of law and the free press, that's what makes it what it is. And, you know, those things arguably don't exist up here. So, I mean, as it stands under the current leadership, I don't see a removal or any sort of change, anything to do with capital controls coming anytime soon. So for me, I don't think Hong Kong is going anywhere in terms of its financial position.